Hello, and welcome to the Boost Your Flexible Packaging Business webinar hosted by S1 Labels and Packaging. My name is Sean McGettigan, and I'll be moderating today's webinar, which is scheduled for 1 hour, including Q&A. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the chat feature. We'll either answer those questions directly via chat or hold them until the end for Tom to answer. As a reminder, by attending today's webinar, you're eligible for a starter kit valued at $7,000 when you purchase a Selco T14 thermal laminator before July 1st. At this point, I'd like to introduce Tom Hauenstein, Global Sales Director for S1 Labels and Packaging. He's been focused on the digital label and flexible packaging markets for the past 8 years, where he helps customers explore new markets and grow their business. I'll now go ahead and turn it over to Tom.
Hey, thank you very much, Sean. I really appreciate it. And welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for attending the webinar today. I know we all have busy schedules, so we appreciate you taking the time, and hopefully you get some good stuff out of it. So today we wanted to talk about the digital flexible packaging market. We want to go over why you want to enter that market, how you can do so in a smart and safe way, and why we are here to help you if you choose to do so in every single aspect of that, whether it's just a little bit of advice or talking through different finishing solutions or what have you. We just want you to know that S1 Labels and Packaging is behind you every step of the way. We have been around for a while, and we have helped some label converters, some digital label converters transition into digital flexible packaging. We've helped completely new startups enter into the digital flexible packaging space. And we also have helped establish flexible packaging converters fine-tune their operations. So during that process, we have learned a lot, and we wanted to share a lot of what we learned with our customers, vendors, and partners. So with that being said, why get into flexible packaging, especially digital flexible packaging? There's a lot of buzz going on right now. The numbers tell a compelling story about this market, so let's dig into them a little bit. First, packaging in general is growing year over year, and flexible packaging within overall packaging is growing as well. Brands are moving from rigid containers into flexible containers for a lot of different reasons. It might be lower fuel costs to get from point A to point B, or less breakage or damage in products because the package is flexible. And then there's also longer shelf life. Some of these packages that you put together have amazing barrier qualities, which means your food lasts longer, stays on the shelf longer, less food waste. So there's a lot of reasons that packaging is moving into flexible packaging. And then when you look at the flexible packaging market on a global size, it is incredibly large. It is projected right now that by 2022, the flexible packaging market is going to be right around $132 billion. That is a massive market. And what's more exciting about that is that only 1 to 2% currently of that huge market is done digitally. So if you take a look at that, and let's say that 1 to 2% jumps to 10% in the next couple of years, that's almost $12 billion that is moving into the digital flexible packaging space. And I think that's why you're seeing so much buzz and so many people trying to enter into that market right now. It is an emerging market. It's a new market. And I think a lot of us understand the normal benefits of being into an emerging market versus a mature or declining market. Obviously, you have your higher profit margins. There's less competition out there. And from a business standpoint, who doesn't love that? And this third bullet point that you see at the bottom, the growing supply chain support, is really an interesting one because the timing is just right. I like to say that this market is in the Goldilocks zone. If you enter into market too late, you're fighting for pennies and it's tough. If you enter a market too early, you're creating a lot of your own intellectual property. You're learning on your own. There's just a ton of waste. But the market right now is at that perfect position where you have supply chain support. There's products readily available for you, but not a lot of people have come to the game, and you would still be considered an early adopter into the digital flexible packaging world. So it is a nice market because of the numbers and because of the timing right now. So we're going to start at the end because I like to do a lot of things backwards. We're going to start with flexible packaging finishing. And there's a lot of reasons that I'm starting with finishing, not just because I'm backwards, and all kidding aside, but it is a really important part of the flexible packaging process. Not only does it do the most important things like add ink protection or create special effects, and by all means, it certainly creates food safety and creates those barriers so that your food cannot get contaminated, but it also is the most problematic part of flexible packaging is marrying two webs together and making sure that it holds up in a fitness for use. There's no leakers or anything like that. And it still meets the marketing demands and the design demands that are out there in the space today. And if you think about the amount of money that brands currently pay for shelf space at a store, packaging is their billboard. So you need to get the packaging right. That is a ton of dollars that are spent at like a Publix or a Kroger's or any type of grocery store worldwide to have that center aisle, eye level shelf space. So they're going to want to make sure, these brands are going to want to make sure that packaging is setting them apart from their competition and is really something that's enticing the customer to reach out and grab it and engage with that packaging. So that's why finishing is so important, and that's why we're starting there. So here is a list of all the different finishing options that are out there today. We're very much a finishing agnostic company. We work with tons of different solutions for any single one of these finishing options because we know some people are specialized in this type of finishing versus that type of finishing. And we want to be able to make sure that we have a solution for all of them. And they all have positives and negatives, and we're going to go over the positives and negatives of each one and some of the most common applications that each one is used for. So we're going to start with adhesive lamination. I think we're starting there because it is the most commonly used in the industry for flexible packaging, whether it's solvent, solventless, or water-based. Adhesive lamination is extremely common for stand-up pouches or for flow wraps. It's got a lot of positives to it. Obviously, it's a proven technology. The adhesive options out there, there's tons of different food safe options as far as adhesive choices. And you're burying the ink. Typically, you're printing in reverse and you're burying the ink, so the durability of the ink and the graphics that are used in the package will hold up. Some of the negatives of adhesive lamination are that sometimes it can have, especially solventless, which is the most common out of the three listed here, can have a longer cure time. Some of the solventless adhesives have a cure time of up to 5, 6, 7 days. They are getting better at those. Some of the newer ones are curing in 2 to 3 days. But what we're seeing is in this market, when there's a transition from analog production to digital production, the focus all of a sudden is on speed to market because you could do that digitally where you couldn't do it analog before. So if speed to market wasn't a big focus, a 6 or 7 day cure time may have not have been a big deal. But now in the digital space, if you're trying to take artwork and turn it into a completed pouch in 7 days and you have a 7-day cure time, that seems like an insurmountable task, right? So again, the applications, you could use adhesive lamination for just about anything. The only downside maybe you might have with adhesive lamination is if the contents can start eating away at that adhesive lamination, you might get a delam. So that kind of brings us to the next type of lamination, which is extrusion lamination. So instead of using an adhesive to marry two different webs together, in extrusion lamination, you're actually liquefying a resin or a plastic and melting it between two different webs to create that adhesive for you. Often this is used in sunscreen or shampoo or what we call a hard to hold product, soaps, anything like that. What will happen is a sunscreen or a shampoo will actually start to eat away at that adhesive, like I said, and you can cause a delamination and the whole package actually starts to fall apart. So it is really great. You're going to see this commonly if you've ever heard the term cosmetic web, where it's a plastic and then a layer of foil and then a sealant layer. Typically, any type of cosmetic web where you have that actual layer of foil and not just a metallized plastic is created using extrusion lamination. The molted resin actually sticks to foil better than liquid adhesive would. And like I said, it's used for hard to hold cosmetic webs. Some of the downsides of cosmetic webs or extrusion lamination is it can be complicated to set up. It's really something you're only going to want to do on really long runs. And if you are using a foil layer, foil, although it has amazing barrier qualities as is quite delicate and is susceptible to pinholes during the processing. So if you were making a pouch or a sachet and you were a little bit rough or it started to get bent and a little bit, you could get pinholes, which means the amazing barrier qualities of that foil have been compromised. Therefore, the shelf life of the food has been compromised. So those are some of the downsides of extrusion lamination, but it's a great process, again, commonly used. E-beam coating. E-beam coating may not be something that is a household name like adhesive or extrusion lamination is, but E-beam coating is basically a process of taking electron beams and firing them at the speed of light through a vacuum. And when I talk to my 8-year-old son about that, he thinks it is the coolest thing in the world. It does sound like a mad science project, but it is a very interesting technique because what you're doing is you're taking a rad cure coating, if you're familiar with like a UV coating or a UV LED coating, and you're doing that, again, energy cured coating, but you're taking out the photo initiator. It's not necessary in electron beam curing. So some of the positives, again, there's no need for photo initiator, so that makes it really food safe. E-beam coating also, it sterilizes while it's curing. Those electrons will sterilize any type of issue or something that could cause some contamination in the food packaging. One of the biggest benefits of the E-beam is that it is instant cure. So you could go right from your E-beam machine. Let's say you would surface print a pre-laminated structure, and then you would E-beam coat it. And then you could go right from your E-beam machine onto, let's say, your vertical form, fill, and seal machine, or onto your pouch machine, and not have to worry about any type of delam or damage because it's instant cure. I know all that sounds great, and you might be wondering to yourself, Tom, why doesn't everybody have E-beam? And I couldn't agree with you more. Sounds like an awesome idea, but there are some downsides to E-beam. First, the price tag is high. There is it's adopted and it's used in the industry and has been in a while, but it's not something where there's just a ton of information out there on how to do it and how to do it right. So there would be some R&D as far as dialing in your E-beam settings and speed there as well. But we think the adoption of E-beam down the road is going to be more prevalent again as the market shifts to a focus on speed to market with flexible packaging. I think you're going to hear more and more about E-beam. Again, on the application side, just about everything: stand-up pouches, flow wraps, sachets, cosmetic webs, whatever you can throw at it, it'll handle. So, and there's some other finishing options out there that we see quite often. Self-wound pressure sensitive, for example. This is what, if you're a digital label converter, probably on your label finisher, you have the ability to add a self-wound pressure sensitive lamination. And there are FDA approved self-wound pressure sensitive laminates out there. But one thing that we find with pressure sensitive adhesives is their heat resistance isn't that great. If you heat up a pressure sensitive adhesive to, let's say, 120 or 130 degrees, it starts to get fluid. And where that becomes an issue is on your pouch line or in the sealing process of a flow wrap. If you're starting to heat up your adhesive, then you're starting to weaken your lamination bond strengths, and you're making yourself susceptible to delamination during the processing to create that actual package. Water-based overprint varnishes are an interesting option too. Many of you might have a label finisher that can do both water-based varnishes and UV cured varnishes, which is great and also can be a little bit of a risk, because if you have the same pan that you are running UV varnish in, and then you want to run an FDA approved overprint varnish that's water based in there, you're going to have to be really, really sure that you've gotten every single part of that UV varnish out of that pan, and roller train assembly and your pumps and hoses and everything, to make sure that you're providing and bringing a safe product to the market. It does have great heat resistance though. So if you are sure that it's clean and it's not contaminated and you can apply it in a safe way, it will get through the pouching and the forming of the package. There are specific overprint varnishes with tons of heat resistance, so that is an option for you. Some of the downsides of water-based overprint varnish is the durability just isn't what it would be or could be. You're not burying the inks, and you're relying on a water-based overprint varnish, so you may get some scratching or rub damage in shipping, especially if a package is packed tight in a box and going over a long period of time or a long distance in a tightly packed box. That might cause some rub to rub mechanical failure. Sometimes in the zipper area, trying to open up, let's say, if you can envision how you're digging in your nails into a beef jerky bag or some sort of stand-up pouch to open it and close it, you kind of have to really dig in tough to get there and to get that bag open, and you might start to cause some damage in that regard with overprint varnishes that are water-based. The third bullet point that we have here is UV lamination. UV lamination, there are UV lamination adhesives that are out there that are considered Nestle compliant or food safe in and of itself, but that food safety is contingent on a lot of assumptions. So first of all, if I was using a UV adhesive, I would definitely make sure that the barrier between the adhesive and the sealant, or the adhesive and the food, would be foil or metallized. You have to make sure you have a ton of barrier to make sure nothing from that UV adhesive could go through that foil. Now, if you recall what I said about foil being susceptible to pinholing during processing, that is a tricky deal there, because you think, well, I know that there's enough barrier so that the UV adhesive can't make it through as long as that foil's not punctured and is perfect. But how can you guarantee that that foil is perfect over time and there's not a migration from that lamination into the sealant area and then into the food? Also, it's tough to guarantee that you're curing 100% of a UV adhesive. And if you don't cure 100% of it, let's say your bulb all of a sudden is only working at 70% efficiency as opposed to 80% efficiency, or some of your reflectors are a little bit dirty, so it's not getting hit with light in every single direction like it could be, what you're opening yourself up to are free radicals that could, again, contaminate food and could be a dangerous issue. So because of all of those things, and we do have customers that do UV adhesive lamination, but our stance at S1 Labels and Packaging is that we really don't recommend UV adhesive lamination for anything food related when it comes to food, because we just don't want to gamble. The risk reward there is way too high for us. So we stay away from that finishing process when we talk about food flexible packaging. Now, there's tons of other flexible packaging out there for screws and bolts and all types of different things not food related. By all means, have at it, as long as it's not getting ingested into a person or an animal. Probably not a big deal, but certainly something that you want to talk to your brand owner about what you're doing, and certainly let them know that you're going to want to take a package that's using UV adhesive and maybe send it to a third party law firm or somewhere that does third party testing to make sure that it is completely safe for that brand and meets their standards, and it meets the safety standards of the FDA or European standards. All right, so thermal lamination. So thermal lamination S1 has been around in the graphics world since forever, and you're probably like, I don't care, Tom. But thermal lamination has been around in the graphics world for a long time, right? You've probably been to a menu or been to a restaurant and you've seen thermally encapsulated menus, right? Front and back thermal encapsulation, or ID cards, driver's licenses are all thermally encapsulated. And we used to sell quite a bit of thermal laminates for the trade show industry. If you've ever seen a pop-up booth, that might actually be using a thermal lamination or a thermal laminate. So it's interesting to see technology that we've been around for a long time applied into a completely different sector. And there are a lot of promising things about thermal lamination that we really love, and it really does make sense in the flexible packaging world. So probably a lot of you on this call are familiar with the HP Pack Ready solution, which is a solution that HP has done a lot of testing and involves thermal lamination to create flexible packaging. So it is out there, and it is a proven finishing method, and there are a lot of solutions out there for it. What I love about thermal lamination is fast curing. As soon as the thermal laminate, or however you're attaching those two webs together, cools down, it is a really durable solution with high lamination bond strengths and is ready to be processed further. Again, whether that's slitting or creating a pouch or a sachet, it is ready to go at that point. Most of the time with thermal lamination, you are burying the ink. The ink is not on the surface. So from protection and durability of the ink, you don't have to worry about the scratching like I brought up with the water-based OPB. Not really an issue with thermal lamination. Those inks are well buried in there. There's some downsides to it. It's not commonly seen thermal lamination in the narrow web, so that's kind of more of a market gap, right? You see it in that 30-inch or which is, I think it's like a 706 millimeter. Forget my lack of conversion, but that 30-inch or that larger space, you will see it there. But in the 13 or the 330 millimeter space, you don't see it too often. It is, something that is getting dialed in as a technology, kind of like I said with Ebeam, where it hasn't been around forever in this space. So there might require a little bit of dial-in of speed and temperature and run settings just to make sure you're not creating curl and you're getting the lamination bond strengths that you really want. But again, that's a little bit of trial and error, and we're here to help you through that learning curve and get through it quickly. Applications for thermal lamination, just about everything you can think of. Again, flow wraps, sachets, cosmetic webs. You can even do in-mold labeling with them. There's just a ton of options out there. I can't think of too many things that you might be limited on. You could do recyclable solutions with thermal lamination, which is really exciting. And we can go down that road a little bit offline if you're really interested in recyclable solutions. So you can go into the sustainable world with thermal lamination, and as much buzz as there is about digital flexible packaging in the world, the buzz around sustainable solutions is probably tenfold at this point. So if you're marrying digital flexible packaging and sustainable together, you've got a pretty winning solution out there in the world today. So because we love thermal lamination and we think it's a good solution, and because we recognize the gap in the market for that narrow thermal lamination option at 13-inch or 330 millimeters, when we met Selco and the guys at Selco producing this particular laminator, the Selco T14, we were really excited. We knew that there was an immediate fit in the marketplace for this particular piece of equipment. So some of the great benefits about this thermal laminator as well. First, you can see it's got corona treating on there. So it's automatically going to treat the inks that you're laying down, and the surface energy is going to be perfect for getting a really high lamination bond strength. Using this particular device, you're not going to get any type of delamination during processing or anything like that. My favorite thing is the small footprint that it offers. I've been to tons of shops all over the globe, and a lot of them are packed, and they barely have any room for another piece of equipment. But this one is so tight and so compact that you wouldn't need to make up a lot of space in order to fit this into your shop. The speeds, it's fast, 50 meters per minute. For my friends in the United States, that's about 162 feet per minute. So at that speed, you could probably outpace two 13-inch Series 3 presses from Indigo. So that's amazing. I love that it's a standalone solution. That's really huge, because you could add thermal lamination to your label finisher if it's a Delta ModTech or an AB Graphics finisher. You could do that. But if you are using that to laminate your flexible packaging, then you're not using it to finish your labels. So there's an opportunity cost there of I'm doing one or the other. But with a standalone unit, you could feasibly have one operator running your finishing unit and one coming over here and running lamination for you, or the same operator doing both, but you're still producing both types of revenue streams simultaneously, and you're not in an either or situation, which is great. Lower capex or capital expenditure than a lot of the other finishing options that we went over today. And when you have a lower cost to get into a market, obviously your ROI is faster. You're out of the red and into the black quicker on that piece of equipment, and you're turning profits again into an emerging market where the profit margins should be larger, and there's less competition. So another thing that I really like about this particular option is you can customize it. Not only, and I'll get into some different options on the next slide, but I'm talking about the width of it. So this particular one is 14 inches, or I think it's 340 millimeters, slightly larger than 13 inches or 330. But let's say you are a press operator that has a 17-inch flexo press and a 13-inch digital press, or in European units, a 432 millimeter flexo press and a 330 millimeter digital press. Well, they would be able to accommodate that with a laminator that's as wide as your widest piece of equipment in narrow web, so that you could do jobs on that particular press and on your digital press as well. So that's kind of a nice thing as far as opening up the doors to all different types of possibilities. And we could talk about different width options and what's best for you offline if that's something that you wanted to do. All right. So another option that I really like, again, and it kind of goes back to that small footprint and speed to market, which I know I've been going over quite a bit, is you can do inline slitting and duplex rewind. So a big part of the flexible packaging market is flow wraps, or basically what we call roll-to-roll flexible packaging, where you're just giving a co-packer to do vertical form, fill, and seal, or horizontal form, fill, and seal, just a roll stock, and they convert it into packaging while they're filling it at the same time. Well, if you have inline slitting and duplex rewind as an option on this, you could slit and rewind all at once. So what you would be doing is printing your graphics on your press, whether flexo or digital, and then you would take it off of there and you would bring it onto here and you would laminate and slit and rewind all in one step, pack it up off to the co-packer, and really fast speed to market, incredibly fast speed to market. So that's really exciting stuff there. So, you know, as far as how we want to fit in to this, is, so we've covered a bit on the digital flexible packaging as to why you would want to get into it. And we've also gone over how to do it if you make that decision to enter into that market. And then we want to just be a conduit to help you as far as getting through your learning curve and having everything you need. We really take a holistic approach to this. And that's not really seen in this space or any other space where you might buy this piece of equipment from this company and your material from here, and then you get support from this consultant, and it's all a mixed bag. And if things go sideways, there's a finger pointing contest of, sorry, your equipment was wrong. No, sir, your materials were bad. No, sir, your consultant told you the wrong material construction. Well, we just want to take the blame for all of that. What I'm saying is we don't want to take the blame for all of that, so we eliminate the finger pointing. So let's say you have an emerging brand and they're a mom and pop and they want to make their own granola in their kitchen and they want to sell it and it's locally sourced. Well, that requires a certain amount of oxygen and moisture barrier for a shelf life of 6 months. But let's say the next batch they come to you with is granola with nuts in it. Well, don't assume that it's just the same material with nuts and requires the same barrier. Nuts can go rancid. So how do you know that if you're not familiar with the space? That's where we come into play with the consultative selling to say, hey, give us a call, shoot us an email and say, this is what my customer is thinking. They want 3 ounces of this in a stand-up pouch with a press to close zipper. How do I do that? What's the best? Can you help me with that? We love that stuff. We love that stuff. So not only are we going to give you the best recommended material combination to create that particular package, but we're also hoping to have the materials handy in order for you to do that as well. So there's not a lot of flexible packaging materials that are offered in 13-inch or 330 millimeter rolls that you can buy one roll at a time and ship same day. I know that our product line today isn't 100% complete, but that is something that we're working tirelessly on around the globe, is to make sure that our product line is complete. So no matter if you want to do this, that, or whatever, we have a product at a warehouse near you that'll fit that need, and you can get it in a day or two and start producing that package right away. So also, another thing that we have are industry connections. We have really good connections on the sustainability, whether it's recyclable or compostability side, really good thought leaders that can help you out as far as how you teach your brands how to come to market with that and separate themselves from the competition. Pouching is another huge connection that we can offer for you. Pouching is a completely different art form, and the brave bring that on right away. You know, that might be something that you outsource for a long time, but we have connections with toll pouchers that are used to running our materials. So they know the settings and the run speeds already. Also, we have toll pouchers that can take 2 different webs and connect them together in registration. So if you're at 330 millimeters, you might think, well, Tom, I can only do really small sachets or sample size pouches or stick packs. I really can't do large beef jerky pouches or pet food pouches. My press is just too small. Well, with the right partner as a toll poucher, that's not the case, because you can print the front web and the back web separately with eye marks, and they will put them together in registration. And they can even, with new pouch lines out there, put a third web in there for your gusset web. So you don't even have to fold over your gusset. Again, maximizing the width of your current technology and your current press that you have in-house with the right partner is a huge deal. So this is how we're trying to help. And we hope that if you have questions about this, reach out to myself, shoot us an email. You'll find our contact information for the Americas on the left and Europe on the right. Our overall email address is labelsandpackaging@s1.com. Please feel free to reach out. And right now, I'm going to go to some questions that we have from Sean, our moderator. So I'm going to kick it back over to him. Sean, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Lots of great information. Before I get into one or two of the questions that have rolled in so far, if anyone else on the call now has questions for Tom, please use the chat feature within the webinar platform and get those into us now, and we'll do our best to get Tom to answer them for you. So Tom, kicking off here, One of the questions talks about, there's a lot of different technologies that you kind of just talked about. How does somebody pick the right one for them?
That's a really good question, right? So, and there's really no blank answer for that or canned answer for that, Sean. What we like to do is when we talk about somebody trying to get into digital flexible packaging, we talk about where they want to be in a year, where they want to be in 5 years. Another thing that we love to do is we encourage our customers and prospects to talk to all of the co-packers within a 200-mile radius. That will give you an idea of what the most commonly produced products and packaging are within your area, and that's just going to be low-hanging fruit for you. So depending on that information that we get, so let's say it's like, oh, you know what, we're in, I don't know if this exists, but let's say, well, in the United States, for example, let's say you're in a state like Colorado that has recreational cannabis legalized. Well, we're probably going to talk to you about the best piece of equipment in order to produce packaging for cannabis, whether it's edibles or flour or what have you. So we try to customize that answer based off what your surrounding area is doing and the markets that that person wants to enter into at that time. And of course, market trends. This is a growing brand that you might want to consider, and this type of finishing might be best for that. But we certainly don't want everybody to enter everything at the same time. It's really good to try to figure out your niche or your focus and become the expert at that and lock that down first, and then start expanding horizontally into different solutions. So I hope that answers the question, Sean.
Great, Tom. Next one. You went over again lots of different finishing options. What are the costs like for each of those different ones? Is maybe most to least, maybe something along those lines.
Yeah, again, that's a bit of a tougher one to answer, because just like any market, I know I'm just giving horrible nebulous answers, and I apologize for that. But just because in any industry, there's the Cadillac of the industry, and there's the mid-range or your Camry of the industry, and then there's also the down and dirty, right? So really, what you can kind of look at is, let's say I rank them by order. Ebeam is probably going to be your most expensive out of all of them. Price range depends. It's typically maybe a 7-figure capex, whether you're talking euros or dollars for Ebeam. So that's not for the faint of heart, right? The adhesive and extrusion lamination, extrusion lamination is probably a little bit more than that. Not the Ebeam, a little bit more than adhesive lamination. Those are maybe, let's say, anywhere from 3 to 500, 600,000, depending on, again, manufacturer bells and whistles. I mean, they can get really expensive as well if you have every single option on there. Thermal lamination. Am I forgetting a finishing? No. Okay. So thermal lamination depends, again, on your options in this particular space. If we're talking about the 330 millimeter or the 14-inch version, I think you're looking at maybe 120,000 US dollars, right around there. It's a little over 100. So way more cost effective, maybe 130,000. We can do official quotes on that, but it is definitely by far really the most cost effective in that 13-inch space for the solution.
Great. Now, I'm about to ask you another cost question. So
Okay.
I'm just giving you a heads up if I laugh, if it's something that we can't answer because we need some more specifics. But what about the material costs once you get into this? What's the best route for one of our attendees to go when it comes to consumables?
Yeah, great question. So there are some suppliers out there on the consumable side, but let's take it step by step. So material cost for a thermal lamination is really not that expensive. It's typically a polyester or a polypropylene with a thermal adhesive. And we are creating all types of different pre-lams that you could surface print onto to create that. Now, a pre-lam, let's say if it's a snack web or something like that, and it's a traditional polypropylene structure, is going to be pretty cost effective. And again, I apologize for, I should have thought of that question when I started to do converting, because I'm used to 1,000 square inches as pricing. And I know that doesn't speak well and globally. And of course, I speak in dollars too. So that is my fault. But, we're looking at 20 cents for a snack web, maybe per MSI, 30 cents. For a pouch web, maybe you're looking at 40 to 50 cents per MSI. Again, this is just material cost. I'm not including indigo inks or clicks or flexo inks or anything like that. And then if you're starting to get into sustainable, if it's recyclable, it probably doesn't have too much of an impact on cost, which makes recyclable really exciting. Compostable is where you start to see some ridiculous figures of 3 or 4x for something that's guaranteed to compost. And trust me, you're trying to create those compostable pre-lams ourselves, and it is time consuming and expensive, and there's tons of testing, and it is not easy. So I totally understand why the costs are 3 or 4x, but hopefully once we pave that road, we can come with compostable solutions that are closer to what a traditional solution would be. So that's on the cost side. And then as far as material supplier side, obviously we're trying to be one. And there are other people trying to work into that space, but not a ton. So we're trying, again, be an emerging market, not have a lot of competition. And we're trying to reap the benefits of that, but have a holistic approach so that we're there for you. And again, our MOQs, if you have a job for a pouch roll, it might be one 5,000 foot roll by 330. I should do that in like type 330 millimeters by 2,000 meter roll, or a 13-inch by 5,000 foot roll. And again, our MOQ on all of our different options are one roll. So we're not trying to tie you into 5,000 pounds of material that's going to take you 6 years to go through. Especially in the digital space, because the jobs that you run in January can be completely different than the jobs you run in February, and March might look completely different than those 2 months. So you never know if things shift quickly when you're talking about shorter runs and different emerging brands. So that's an interesting thing, and that's how that lower MOQ and quick turnaround time really comes into play.
Cool. Thanks, Tom. We got one more for you right now. You're talking specifically about the 13-inch thermal solution. Is S1LP, as far as S1LP goes, what types of thermal lam films or any packaging films are you offering for this solution?
Oh, great question there. So we do have laminates where what you're doing is, so for a pouch web, for example, we call it a pre-laminated solution where we've already sealed the barrier and the sealant together. So a pouch web that might be a 3.5 or 4 mil structure, or 400 gauge. And what you would do is you would surface print that. And then we have thermal laminates that you would put through onto this device. So right now we have a gloss, a matte, a soft touch, and a satin with a polyester. And soon we're going to have polypropylene, so you can make a quintessential snack web or chip bag, which is polypropylene to metallized heat sealable polypropylene. We'll have those options. We're going to be looking at polyamide or nylon options as well, so that you could get into a tear-proof solution or maybe a cheese web. So again, we have some options ready to go right now, and those options are expanding as demand is growing. So, and then we also have some recyclable solutions as well. So we do have some pure polyethylene structures where you can print onto polyethylene. And then we have a polyethylene with a thermal adhesive. So it's a pure polyethylene structure, which means that you can recycle it. That's a pretty big deal. Most flexible packaging constructions are one type of plastic, like polyester, adhered to another type of plastic, like polyethylene. And once you mix two plastics together, the ability to recycle them does not exist. But by creating new structures that are pure polyethylene, and maybe it's a mix of high density polyethylene with low linear density, or maybe some EVOH co-blended in there for barrier, you can actually create a flexible packaging solution with your thermal laminator using pure polyethylene that's recyclable. So again, there's tons of options out there. I don't think you're really limited, and the options are just going to grow and grow as the market becomes more and more mature and the demand grows in that space.
Great. But a couple more questions roll in. First one, Tom, can you confirm Selco lamination is available for Europe?
Yes, absolutely. There are products out there already. We have thermal lamination products that are in stock and ready to ship in Europe, most definitely. And so that's ready to go now. Yeah.
Cool. If one of our attendees today, if they were to buy a T14, how long does it take to get it implemented? Basically, what's the time frame from setup for start to finish?
Oh, okay. So are you asking what's the lead time to get it installed once you purchase it, or what's the
how long does it take
curve
to install and the learning curve? I think a little bit of everything.
Okay. All right. So I believe the lead time on this particular device is 12 weeks. I'll have to double check, but it's right around that time from purchase order to shipment. Now, these particular devices are quality manufactured in the UK on the north side of in Manchester. So your shipping time is obviously going to be dictated by your distance from Manchester in the UK. And then once it's at your place, I think it's maybe if I recall, a 1 to 2 day install time, and you should be up and running in no time. The install is really quick and painless, as is the learning curve. It's really easy to use. Once you dial in those recipes of different tensionings and heat settings and speed for certain products, it's basically just picking that combination again and hitting start, and away you go. So the lead time, I would say, again, is like 12 weeks. Install is really fast. Learning curve is really fast. Ease of use is amazing.
Cool. All right. On to the next one. Does thermal lamination, does that change the appearance of the package at all? So like if you use a gloss finish, it'll still be clear, right?
Yeah, so it depends on the thermal laminate that you choose, right? So most of our laminates at this point are clear, but there are options out there in the market where you can do all types of different effects with thermal lamination. You just have to make sure the thermal laminate that you're choosing is FDA approved, or Nestle compliant, or European food safety compliant. But yeah, you can get really cool effects like rainbows and all types of different cast and cure effects in your lamination if you want to change the appearance of it. But if you want just a pure clear gloss, polyester, by all means you could do that too. So yeah, the clarity, or what we call the haze on a clear gloss, is really, really low. Polyester's got great optical clarity. The adhesive has got great optical clarity as well. So it almost looks like it's not on there.
That's great, Tom. Well, I think that concludes our Q&A. We've got all of the questions that have come in so far answered. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all of our attendees for spending almost an hour with us. Tom, thank you for your time today and this really informative presentation. I think really the Q&A helped drive home a lot of what can be done with this solution and what S1 Labels and Packaging can do for the industry, for this marketplace.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sean, for that. And I hope the Q&A continues, so keep the questions coming. We want to guide you through every step of the process. And again, as Sean said, just to reiterate what he said, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
And play off of what Tom just said, if you do have any other questions or like to learn more about anything that was covered today, please don't hesitate to contact us here at S1 Labels and Packaging. You can also find us online at s1lp.com. That's SONELP.com. Thanks again, everyone. Bye-bye now.